How do teenagers who have experienced depression adapt and become resilient? Adolescents, if equipped with the right skills, are capable of becoming resilient and adapting to the environment and life around them after dealing with hardships in specific depression. First, taking a look at the Meditations of the Emperor, you can see that all that happens right. You will find that if you observe narrowly, I mean not only accordingly to the natural order, but according to our idea of justice, and, as it were, by the action of one who distributes according to merit. From on then observing this as you have begun, and whatever you do, let your aim be goodness as it is clearly understood, hold this in every action. With this, teenagers have the right mindset to overcome the adversity of depressive episodes. It is thought of to learn from what has happened and to keep it in the past. The ability to grow comes from the ability to persevere in times where others want to go back to unhealthy habits. Research shows that when students believe in both intellectual abilities and social attributes, it can be developed and improve their resilience, showing a lower response in adversity and improved performance, which is stated by Hurley in 2020. Overall, teens who use the outside world around them will remain resilient. Next, taking a look at the dark side of resilience, you can see that looking at resilience alone, it is defined as a psychological capability to adapt to stressful circumstances and to bounce back from adverse events. But does it harm the body? With the over-realistic goals, numerous people try to obtain limits that are unobtainable. Known as false hope syndrome, scientists prove that countless people waste vast amounts of time trying to obtain unrealistic goals when it is a clear observation. Another noticeable trait with resilience is the ability to make overly tolerant to adversity, in which there was a noticeable difference between the amount of people who would put up with a quote-unquote bad boss over a bad relationship. Furthermore, it often hinders the way of leadership success in addition to organizational and team effectiveness. Aidan, Furham, and researchers prove that there are major differences in humans' ability to overcome stressful jobs and environments, in which workers will display aggressive coping mechanisms that inflate an ego in a person. When connecting these two artifacts with the outside world, you see that the dark side of resilience in Meditations of the Emperor is based on resilience and how to adapt. The author shares how it can be important but can also lead to a horrible mindset if not taken in the right direction. With outside resources, it is seen on how to evolve when the mindset isn't where it should be. Starting off, it is essential to avoid thinking about the negatives of a situation, but instead build healthy, uplifting habits. Seeking help and support from others, as well as forms of therapy, such as talking with a guidance or mental health professional, will improve a person's overall well-being. Although while taking care of oneself, being proactive and engaged in school, having high self-esteem, and learning from key experiences will remain of maintaining and adapting to a positive outlook on life. Families that demonstrate strength focus on achievable goals and concrete steps that can be taken to achieve those goals. A substantial number of parents are able to introduce children to problem solving on the day-to-day, which allows the young to face threats and modify to adversity. Other contributions such as cognitive development, self-regulation, and having relationships with caring adults. Going further into depth, scientists share that when problem solving, the prefrontal cortex is seen to collapse in times of trauma and stress. When encouraging children to problem solve, it not only has a sense of self-assurance and knowledge, but also reconnects the parts of the brain such as prefrontal cortex, which may shut down in times of worrying. Teaching children to problem solve should not happen just at home, but also at school as well. Two programs implemented to prevent depression, known as Positive Psychology Program, the PPP, and Penn Resiliency Program, the PRP, took place in Toronto, Canada in 2009. Taking a closer look at PRP, it promotes optimism by teaching students to think more realistically and flexibly about the problems they encounter. The PRP also teaches assertiveness, creative brainstorming, decision-making, relaxation, and other coping and problem-solving skills, which the Teaching Resilience in 2022 helped state. Scientists and doctors reviewed 19 studies done in the past 20 years that involved PRP. All studies took 2,008 to 15-year-olds of different ethnic and racial community backgrounds. With the help of professional leaders, researchers established that the PRP increased optimism and reduced depression symptoms for up to a year. When looking at the pros and cons of this topic, you can see that learning to adapt to future problems, the ability to overcome depression that it is being dealt with, and decreasing the risk for children in the future to have depression are all pros. And when taking a look at the cons, you can see that having too much resilience can lead to an unhealthy mindset. Being tolerant to adversity can lead to a quote-unquote bad job, and aggressive coping mechanisms can form extreme egos. As a result, the world is at a constant change, and teens learn from the struggle of psychological and emotional problems, such as depression, and are able to become resilient and adapt to the world around them with the right care and mindset.
Thank you. How did your research question evolve as you moved through the research process?
My research question was always on the same track, but became more specific as I went on. I started with the question, how do people who have experienced a mental disorder overcome trauma, which eventually turned into the question that I have, how do teenagers who have experienced depression adapt and become resilient? I was able to narrow this down by looking at the artifacts given, such as the dark side of resilience, and I also wanted to focus on a specific age group.
Thank you. What additional questions emerged from your research, and why are they important?
An additional question that emerged from my research was having to do with other mental disorders, such as schizophrenia or anxiety, and how they compare to depression. This question is important because not all disorders are the same, and I wanted to see how one might differ when becoming resilient compared to depression.
Okay, thank you.